Welcome to another TSE single slider. Today we're going to answer the question, what are client secrets? A lot of Stripe objects have a client secret, including orders, setup intents, payment intents, financial connection sessions, and more. But why do client secrets exist on these objects? What purpose do they serve? In a nutshell, a client secret gives a client, like a web browser or mobile app, permission to interact with a specific Stripe object by talking directly to Stripe. That's a pretty abstract description, so let's look at some examples of how and why client secrets are used. We'll start with how client secrets optimize asynchronous flows which involve the client, like a payment that requires 3D Secure. Without a client secret, almost everything the client does that involves Stripe would need to be relayed through a server integration. The client would make a request, the server uses its secret API key to talk to Stripe, Stripe sends the response to the server, and finally the server relays the information back to the client. That's a lot of steps, and this would have to happen every time the client needs to talk to Stripe. A concrete example of this is a payment which requires 3D Secure authentication. Imagine a customer on the client side who presses a pay button in their web browser. The request to pay is sent to the integration server, and the server tells Stripe to attempt payment. Stripe responds and says the transaction requires 3D Secure, so the server relays the 3D Secure information back to the client. With the server in the middle, this integration would be difficult to build, more complex, harder to maintain, error-prone, and slow. The server would also have the extra burden of acting as a relay, which would eat up bandwidth and processing power. Now let's take a look at the version with a client secret. In scenarios where operations must be performed by the client, or it's safe to let the client perform certain operations, allowing the client to talk directly to Stripe makes sense. The client secret grants the access the client needs to perform the operations itself, so the client can talk directly to Stripe, and now things are much simpler and a lot faster. Next, we'll look at how Stripe.js uses a client secret to tailor the payment element to a specific payment scenario. When using the payment element, the client secret from an order, setup intent, or payment intent is used to initialize an instance of Stripe elements. Stripe.js uses that client secret to fetch information about the order or intent from Stripe, and from there a customized payment element can be rendered which is optimized for the specific payment in question. The payment element will show the correct payment options based on the information Stripe provides. For example, automatic payment methods enabled in the dashboard will be cross-referenced with the currency and other attributes of the order or intent, and the payment element will display the resulting options. The payment element can even be updated client-side based on changes made to the underlying order or intent, all thanks to the client secret. Our third example shows how client secrets enable secure session configuration. We'll start by creating an identity verification session on the server using a secret API key. The server is a secure, trusted environment, so we can safely configure the verification session here with the options we want. Once the verification session has been created, we pass its client secret to the client. The client secret only allows client-side operations to be performed, so sensitive or undesirable changes cannot be made. For security reasons, the client secret in this scenario can only be used once. Note that not all client secrets have this limitation. The client secrets from orders and intents, for example, can be used multiple times. Also note that in this scenario, the client secret has an expiration date, again for security reasons. Identity verification is typically performed shortly after the verification session is created, so it makes sense for the client secret in this scenario to expire. However, in a payment scenario, where an asynchronous payment can take hours, days, or even weeks to complete, those client secrets do not expire. There are a few other things to note about client secrets. First, clients make API requests like the ones discussed here using a combination of a publishable API key and a client secret. A publishable API key by itself can't do very much, but a client secret augments the client's abilities for specific scenarios. Second, each client secret is unique to a specific Stripe object, and a client secret should only be shared with the client associated with that object. For example, in a scenario where a customer is trying to pay a payment intent on the web, That payment intents client secret should only be shared with the customer's web browser, not anyone or anything else. Third, client secrets are sensitive and grant special access, so do not store, log, or embed them in URLs. You should treat them a lot like you would a password. They have a specific purpose, should not be shared except with the client they're intended for, and they grant additional access and abilities, so they need to be kept safe. To recap, client secrets give a client permission to interact with a specific object by talking directly to Stripe. They're used to optimize asynchronous flows, improve the user experience, securely perform certain operations, and more. To find out more about client secrets and how they're used, check out our documentation for orders, setup intents, payment intents, sources, financial connections, and identity verification.